Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Ryan Foster. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Quentin.
Yeah, for sure, man. So Ryan, the first question that I like to ask all of my guests, and I'm going to obviously ask you, is who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
It's probably a different one than you get normally. Hunter Labrada, man, he's my favorite. Just physique wise and the way he conducts himself is it's world class, man. And he's got the mass with classic lines, like he says. And I don't know, man, he's just really humble, and I just really appreciate that about him. Sean Roden's probably next up there, at least for his physique wise and posing. I just really like the classic shape with the mass, man. That's the prize right there.
Very cool. Now, I saw on your Instagram, one of your last Instagram posts, you were you got to just meet Hunter here a week or two ago. Why don't you talk about that? Where was that? And what was that like for you?
Yeah, man, that was cool. So he came up and did a guest posing here in Washington at the Emerald Cup. And yeah, man, he was just hanging out, and I got to meet my idol. It was pretty cool. And then kind of chop it up with him for a few minutes, and then kind of found out he was going to be training later that day. So I was like, well, I got to go and at least watch. And it was cool, man. I was actually doing legs, and he watched me and kind of pushed me through my top set. And I was like, dude, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like, my favorite bodybuilder is here watching me do squats. It doesn't get much better than that.
No, that's awesome, man. It's kind of like me being able to have some of these top IFBB pros on the podcast. It's like I had Sean Clarita on here, and it's like, here I am, even though it's not in person, but still it's like, all right, here I am on Zoom having a conversation with Mr. Olympia. So that is really cool, man. And I think it's awesome that Hunter's one of your favorites, because like you said, it's with him, it's more than the physique. Obviously, he's got a top physique in the world, but you can definitely tell there's that professionalism, and just it's all business, right? And I think that's cool when you have somebody that kind of has the whole package in terms of life, business, and bodybuilding. So all right, Ryan, so why don't you let us know at what age did you start lifting weights, and then why did you start lifting weights at that age?
All right, so I've always been like intrigued by muscles. I can remember from like 9 or 10 years old looking in the mirror and flexing, and grabbing some old dumbbells my parents had laying around and just doing some curls and flexing and all of that. I started working out when I was 14. I remember specifically because the gym required you to be 15 years old that I was training at. And my mom lied on the paperwork and said I was 15 so I could work out with the big guys. But yeah, my older brother had just started getting into bodybuilding. He had a personal trainer. So he kind of like took me under his wing and showed me some of the things that he was learning. And man, it was game over after that. I never stopped. I've never taken a break. It's my life.
That's cool, man. It sounds like you got a pretty awesome mom if she lied about your age to get in the gym, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I think she knew how bad I wanted it. And she had taken me it was like a sports fitness center at first. I trained with her a couple days, and I was like, this is cool and all, but I want to go train with like the big guys that are serious.
Very cool, man. Love that. All right. So I kind of like to use that question about, what age you started lifting weights and why, to kind of transition into my guest's upbringing in childhood. So if you don't mind, Ryan, just talk about your childhood a little bit more, talk about your family, talk about maybe some of the sports or extracurricular activities that you're involved with. Just share some of the highlights, maybe some of the ups, some of the downs up to about high school. And then once we kind of get to high school, transition from there. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So pretty good upbringing, parents were super supportive of whatever I do. I was always into something new. I was playing guitar at one point, then a couple months later I wanted to be a rodeo cowboy, and and I was a skateboarder for a little bit, and I got into music and all that, and all that was fun and cool. And they were supportive. They weren't really like push me really hard, like you have to do this or whatever. It's like, you try it out, see what you like, and it was cool. Sometimes I wish they'd been like, really diligent about like forcing me to like, really stick with it and be diligent about, practice and all that. And I got into lacrosse at a pretty young age, and that was like that was my sport, man. I played from probably fourth grade all the way up till after high school. I played, well, I had started playing after high school. I'll get into that later, but yeah, so that was my sport, and part of the reason why, I was lifting weights to try and get bigger and stronger for that. I was always really skinny, and I was a little bit insecure about that. So yeah, man, I just wanted to get huge. As soon as I started lifting weights, I was doing the barbecue chicken breast and a box of mac and cheese. And I was that kid in school walking around I would just have a steak in my hand and be eating it, walking through the hallways. And people thought I was just like, it was so bizarre. I thought it was weird that they didn't want to be big like that. So, but yeah. And, I started getting the muscular development magazines and stuff and trying to emulate, I saw Jay Cutler in there. I saw he was wearing Timberland boots on a hack squat picture. I had it posted up on my wall, and I was like, okay, that's the trick. You gotta get the Timberland boots. So I had like the Walmart knockoffs, and man, I'd wear those to the gym every day because I want to be like Jay Cutler.
I love that, man. I love that. Now, kind of just in regards to your parents and stuff, is there something that they kind of instilled in you? Or, is there something maybe that your mom or your dad maybe said to you all the time that kind of sticks in your mind? If so, what would that be?
Yeah. So, my dad he's a workhorse. He's had his own painting company for 35, 40 years now. He's just, the man doesn't stop. And so, I kind of take that and use that more for bodybuilding. I have my own painting company, but he always told me, just do whatever it takes. He said, don't do your best, do whatever it takes. So it's kind of like, all out, everything you got for this one thing that you're passionate about. And for me, that wasn't really like painting or anything like that. It was bodybuilding. And then when I was playing lacrosse, I was the kid that would take my stick into school with me and walk through the halls with it, and stay after practice an extra 2 hours and shoot. And then after games, I would even still go to the school and practice afterwards, especially if we lost. I'd be really pissed and want to just go get some anger out and just shoot a bunch of lacrosse balls around. And but yeah, I definitely got that from my dad and his work ethic.
Excellent, man. Now, I want to ask you this, because I think for me personally, because I, started lifting weights going into fourth grade and had a great, mentor to teach me how to lift weights and stuff like that, was a bodybuilder. So I was exposed to bodybuilding at a very young age and just was infatuated with it. And just like you, wanted to get big and the muscles and have the magazines and all of that. And I think for me, part of the attraction to bodybuilding, especially back in the day, I think it's a little bit different now with social media, but it was kind of like a subculture. It was kind of like underground. It was kind of like rebellious and very different. And I'm from a small town in Iowa. Like, it's not like there's a bodybuilding culture around here. So, it kind of sounds like, cause you said you were like into skateboarding and music for a little bit. Was a little bit of the draw of bodybuilding kind of that rebel mentality and kind of being different? Was that a part of the draw for you, Ryan?
Yeah, always, man. I always wanted to be different. I'd wear 2 different shoes to school, like 2 different colored shoes. I was always trying to be unique and different. And, the bodybuilders, I'm like, these guys are like, they're just so far beyond what you see normally. And yeah, I was always kind of like the black sheep, misfit kind of guy. And yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons I gravitated towards it. And then I hung out with the older kids in school. I had a couple kids my age that I was friends with, but I tended to gravitate towards, kids a couple years older than me that were bigger or like, really, really good at sports, whatever they were doing, and try to just, follow in their footsteps.
Cool, man. Love it. So why don't you talk about, you kind of brought up lacrosse in terms of starting to play it post high school. When you were in high school, I know there was bodybuilding. I know there was lacrosse. What were you thinking in terms of like a career or a job when you were in high school? And then once you graduated high school, how did that unfold, or how did life kind of take you in a direction after high school?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted to be a professional lacrosse player at first. You know, that was the goal. But even at that time, I knew that I wanted to own my own gym one day, because that was my safe place, man. Even in high school, I would just go down and hang out for hours after school and just read the bodybuilding magazines, take my meals down there and just bullshit with the guys. And that's where I was most comfortable. Um, you know, there'd be times I was like in between, you know, houses or going through little breakups and stuff. And I just go to sleep at the gym, you know, like it's like one of these days I'm going to open my own gym with like a little apartment above it. And that's my dream goal right there. And that hasn't changed. But yeah, after that, after high school, I went into Western Oregon to play lacrosse in college, and I started practicing with the team and got through the first term of school, and it was just too expensive. Even the equipment for the season, they wanted me to pay, you know, $1,000 for the helmet and matching gloves and all that. And I was a broke college kid, and I didn't have any student loans or Parent Plus loans that I could rely on to help out. So I was like, well, I guess I can still practice with them. And the gym at the university was really awesome. So then even after I was done there, I just kept training at the gym, and I was like, you know what? It's not lacrosse, it's bodybuilding, and I'm just gonna dive all into this. And you know, I was still figuring it out. I was probably about 220 at the time, just eating, like I said, mac and cheese and barbecue chicken and spaghetti and all that. But yeah, I think after I decided to make that switch, um, it was full speed ahead.
Yeah. So now I correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that your dad has like a painting company, and then you have your own as well.
Yeah. So I started my own painting company in probably 2014 or 15, not too long after I'd graduated. And I did do 1 year at a Wyotech. It's an automotive trade school. And I went and studied custom hot rod refinishing and chassis fabrication. So I was still interested in cars a little bit. And I kind of just felt like I needed to be in school and not, you know, that's what you're supposed to do at that age. And, you know, I graduated, worked in a couple of body shops for the next year or so. And I just, you know, I wasn't making the money that I was expecting to from like being a specialist in that area and making 10, $12 an hour. It just wasn't cutting it. I was barely able to pay for my groceries. So I was like, you know what? I've been painting houses my whole life. I can make 5 times that much money. Even though it's not my favorite thing to do, I can make the money that I need to pay for bodybuilding. And, you know, like it's not a cheap sport.
Right. So, before we kind of get into, you know, all things bodybuilding, I do want to talk about, you know, starting your own business, because that's, you know, pretty unique in terms of, you know, bodybuilders, especially once you start getting a little bit higher up. But I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned in terms of owning your own business. I own my own gym, and, you know, it'll be 2-3 years here in the fall. And it's like, I went to college for 4 years, got my bachelor's degree in exercise science, did kind of what you're supposed to do, right? And you know, you learn so much just by experiencing life and really having your own business. Like it's unlike anything else. Like college doesn't really prepare you for that. There's lessons you can't learn in college through a textbook in terms of owning a business. So what are maybe some of the life lessons, or what are some of the things that you've learned owning your own business over this time period, Ryan?
Probably time management is definitely one of them. Having a routine and sticking to that routine, and, you know, just making sure that every day is like Groundhog's Day for the most part. You know, it's the same thing over and over. And I like the structure, you know, it keeps me like mentally stable. And I feel better when I know I've got the week planned out, the month as far out planned out as I can have, the better, because as you know, with having your own business, there's always something unexpected that happens, and you got to be quick on your feet. So the more things that you can control, the easier it is to handle those when they do occur. And, you know, just, I think another thing was like public relations and stuff. You know, I was really just a quiet, isolated bodybuilder. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was very, just not outgoing. I just was really focused on just that, and kind of like hoodie up, hat down, don't talk to me. But with owning your own business, it's really tough. You know, you don't want to scare away all your customers. So you got to kind of learn how to speak to them and sound professional, and sell yourself too. You know, I don't like asking for money or telling people that they got to pay me this much money for a job, but you know, that's part of it. And I got a lot more comfortable with, you know, just being direct with people. I think is something I've learned a lot, and not, you know, beating around the bush and trying to sugarcoat everything. Just like, this is what it's going to cost. This is what you owe me. This is how long it'll take it or leave it.
Excellent, man. Those are great, you know, value adds. Now, I do want to ask you, because earlier you kind of said, like, you know, you're not necessarily passionate about painting and stuff like that, right? So I think this is something important, especially like in our culture, because I'm a big person about like pursue your passion and all of that. I think we all have purpose, we all have passion as human beings, but I think in our culture, it's like we push this passion thing so much, and people think like, you know, I'm just going to pursue my passion, I'm going to be a millionaire. That's not the case, right? So talk about having like a job that you're not necessarily passionate about, but hey, it pays the bills. It gives you some structure. It teaches you some things, and maybe it helps you with the bodybuilding in terms of the finances. So talk about that, because you're not passionate about painting, but you have a business, you're making money, and you're passionate about bodybuilding. Can you talk about that for a minute, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's funny you say that, because I started painting when I was like, you know, probably 10 years old with my dad. And I painted all through school. I'd come even after school sometimes and help him. So like, I knew how to work, and I've already been painting for a very long time. But yeah, it just, like having your own schedule too. And for me, I don't want somebody telling me you can only eat at this time and this time. You have to work this day, and this day. And I'm like, well, what if like something comes up? You know, I don't want to have to ask permission to take a day off if there's some family emergency or get scolded for it. And then the eating thing too, man. I take 2 or 3 lunch breaks a day, so it's it's not always the most efficient. But for me, I was able to balance the two. You know, just keep my microwave on me, plug it in at work, and I'm heating up my meals. And yeah, is that about?
Yeah. And just talk about also, Ryan, like, you're not passionate about painting, but it's a job, it's a career, it's paying the bills. So talk about that in terms of like, you know, your passion's not always going to pay you, right? So
Yeah,
you might have to do something that you're not passionate about in order to pursue that passion. So just touch on that too, if you don't mind.
yeah. So I think I had a long-term vision. I just wanted to start coaching people, but I knew that I needed more experience. And I wasn't about to just give up my whole career for something that I'm passionate about. You know, it's too risky. I knew that it was going to be a process, and I would have to probably do both at the same time until my coaching and personal training could catch up to where I could quit my painting. But yeah, I hate painting, to be honest, man. It's terrible. I'm way too big to be climbing up ladders. I snapped a 20-foot ladder a couple years ago. I was all the way at the top, and it was an old hand-me-down ladder from my dad that should have been retired a few years ago. But you know, I still use that thing. And yeah, I was up there taping out a window, and it shifted just a half an inch, and it literally snapped in half, and I fell back on my ass and bruised it up and everything. And I'm even more terrified of ladders, but I'm still out here doing it. damn near every day. And I'm about 265, 270 pounds. And then I'm climbing up with a weight belt and my equipment on top of me. And I'm like, it's brutal, man. It's really hard to do when you're on prep and you're getting lightheaded, you know, your blood sugar's getting low. It's dangerous. And you know, last year I prepped for the USA's and it was in the summer. So that was at the peak of my season for painting. And man, I knew that even though it sucked, like I wasn't going to let that be the one reason why I wasn't going to get to the stage. And I try to be positive about it. And, you know, I get a lot of extra refeeds and I eat a lot of food because I'm just burning all day long. So it's pretty easy for me to get in shape. It's just, I'm exhausted all the time. And, you know, manual labor is really tough on your body. And for us, we're trying to just like keep these things just as polished as possible. But man, I've got aches and pains and I got imbalances and stuff from climbing up ladders sideways or painting with. So I do try to, you know, make sure I use both hands and climb up the ladder symmetrically and do a few calf raises when I'm up there and keep the glutes squeezed in tight. And I'm like, I might as well make the best out of it while I'm here, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you touching on that, Ryan, because, you know, life isn't quite as glamorous as Instagram and social media wants you to believe it is. Now, vision. You mentioned you have this vision for your life. You mentioned you want to own your own gym someday. You just mentioned coaching. If you don't mind, I love that you brought this up because I think it's very important for us to live in the moment, but I think it's very important for us to have vision for our lives and to have some sort of plan to get there. So talk about your vision. Talk about, like, you know, do you have, like, in 5 years, you've kind of got some steps to be somewhere? What does that look like? Because I think this is something that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about. And I'd love to hear kind of what your vision is for your life.
Yeah. So, you know, I knew that I needed to be somebody and be recognized in the industry as someone who knows what they're doing. And I needed to prove that. And I know I can't just, you know, you can't just start working and make a bunch of money until you have the experience. And like I said, I didn't, I did lift weights, you know, I didn't for 14 up until about age 25 is when I did my first bodybuilding show. So I knew that I didn't want to step on stage until I was at least a heavyweight bodybuilder. It didn't make much sense for me to compete before I was at least starting at like 230, 240 pounds. It was never my goal to be a good amateur or be a good like national level bodybuilder. The goal's always been to be one of the top pros, and not just get my pro card and call it good and move on, you know. But yeah, that's pretty much that.
So, so talk about then, so you are kind of just like saying you want to kind of like make a name for yourself. You want to put in the work, you want to compete, you want to become an IFBB pro. And then I'm assuming then you're going to kind of utilize that recognition or that type of a resume to kind of build your coaching clientele and then eventually own your own gym. So talk about kind of like moving in that direction with having some sort of resume and not just trying to be some Joe Schmo coach online.
Yeah, exactly. So the gym thing is not quite as important to me as it was before because I've found somewhere that's really, really close to me and it's my community, it's my people, O'Malley's Gym. This place has been fundamental in my bodybuilding progress. As soon as I joined that gym in 2018, right after they had opened in 2017, I met my first coach. I did a posing class. I was like, you know what? I think I'm kind of big now. I think I got maybe a little bit of potential. So I went there. They were doing a free posing class, and a couple of the guys there that were some national level guys or whatever, and they're like, man, like you really do have some good potential. Who's your coach? I was like, just me, man. I don't have a coach. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just picking up bits and pieces from people that I admire or look up to. And So I ended up working with a guy named Brandon Lyons, and he took me under his wing and he showed me what a real bodybuilding diet was and put me through my first prep. But yeah, that gym it's my community, man. Like I think it wasn't just owning a gym is what I wanted. It was having that family and that tight knit community of people that, you know, cause I was always kind of like the outcast in high school and stuff growing up. And I was like, man, it'd be really cool one day to like meet some like-minded people and to share the same beliefs and everything. And the camaraderie in there, you know, everybody's pushing each other and supporting each other. And it's like, you know, it's owning the gym is not as important to me now as, you know, just getting my name out there and doing the online coaching thing, because as you know, it's the more time you have that you can spend on your bodybuilding and like massages and have a free schedule, you know, the better you're going to be. So yeah, I'm just putting in the work now so that when it's time, I can retire from painting and just go coaching full time. Obviously there's going to be a lot of other endeavors that I go down with, you know, like clothing lines, supplements and stuff like that, but that's down the line. You know I got to earn my stripes first before I try to put out some product or some apparel that, you know, it's like, I don't want to do it just for fun. I want to make an impact and really like just reach the people that I'm trying to.
Cool. No, I love that, man. I appreciate your attitude and mentality of, you know, putting in the work and you know, good things will happen. So let's kind of start getting into a little bit of the bodybuilding talk here. So you said you did your first show at 25. You had a coach, Brandon, for that. How did that first show go? Did you enjoy it? Was it a great experience? And then just talk about maybe some of the other competitions that you've done after that first one.
Yeah. So yeah, the first one, I ended up competing as a heavyweight. I didn't even bother doing the novice. I just thought that was kind of, I didn't want to be associated with, I didn't want to see how I stack up next to a newbie. I want to see how I stack up in the open class. So I was in the heavyweight division. There's only 4 of us in there, but I won my class. Looked pretty good. There's definitely some things I messed up on prep along the way as you learn, you know, and had a couple of moments where I slipped and, you know, ate a couple extra tablespoons of peanut butter than I was supposed to. Which I didn't realize how bad that was at the time. But and you know, like not getting sleep, all these little things that you don't really think about when you're first starting. But I didn't win the overall, and that kind of crushed me because the guy that beat me was not impressive. I don't he was more conditioned than me, but just not a very aesthetic physique, really imbalanced. And dude, that it crushed me. So I just got back to work and I was like, I'm not stepping back on here until I'm for sure going to win the overall. And I'm ready to be confident that I'm ready for like the national level. But that took, so yeah, I was 25 and that was 2018. I took the next year off to grow. And 2020, I had 5 shows planned, which were all canceled. So I prepped for all those shows. So I stayed on prep for about 9 months, staying in pretty decent shape. And then one would cancel. So I do maybe like a week or 2 off and get some food back in me. And then, you know, dive right back into it for the next prep. And, you know, the whole time everyone's telling me, you're wasting your time. I don't know why you're prepping for these shows. They keep getting canceled. And I was like, I don't care. Like, this is what I want to do. And I'm not going to let this stop me from getting there. But it was still a good experience. I learned a lot just going through those 5 preps were probably, you know, 8 to 12 weeks long until I decided, you know, this isn't going to be it. And tried a couple other little coaches here and there just for a short amount of time, just to see what I liked. And not very good fits until I stumbled upon, well, I didn't stumble upon him, but the owner of O'Malley's gym, Tim O'Malley, he took me under his wing, and he just, ever since we started together, man, I've just catapulted in my progress. We click perfectly. He listens to me, and like, he's just very attentive to me, and he believes in me, and I like his morals. I like the way he conducts himself and runs his business. And so we started working for my national qualifier last year in 2021, and it was the Oregon Open, and I won that show. I was the only one in the super heavies, but I also won the overall, and that was definitely my best look ever. I was 232 on stage. We didn't do any peaking, no water protocols, and I just rolled right into it. And man, that was the best feeling. And I had a really solid posing routine I'd put together that I worked on, and like just incredibly proud of the package that I brought. And the fact that, you know, some of my family was there, my gym family was there supporting me, and like that was just incredible. And I started getting some attention as I was posting my progress pictures. You know, Sulios and Daniel at Bodybuilders Without Borders started posting me, and my followers started going way up, and I was getting more attention and a little more confidence, you know, because I always felt like I was not quite there, not ready. But then a lot of these guys were reaching out, and, you know, here and there there'd be some pros I'd see like my progress pictures. Some sprinkled in, a couple of them would comment like, man, that dude's got some potential, or that dude's got great shape. And dude, that just motivated me even more. And so then I was like, you know what, let's shoot for a national show just to see how I stack up. And so we started prepping. Well, we stayed on prep for the USA's, which was 4 or 5 weeks later. And yeah, there was some talk. I was definitely one of the favorites going into it. And we talked about sucking me down into the heavyweights. So I was 232 at the first show, and man, it was tough. I couldn't get another pound off of me as hard as I tried. I was stuck there at 232, get down to maybe 230, 229. It's like, dude, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we made it work. I got there. I weighed in at 220 because we did do a water loading protocol, and I dropped all that water, and I looked really stringy by that time because we had done so much cardio and a lot of HIIT towards the end. I lost the size of my legs. My adductors just disappeared. So there was like that thigh gap, which drives me crazy. My back just flattened out because there I held a little bit of fat, a little bit of smoothness in my back, my low back. So we were just trying so hard to get that last little bit peeled off. But what had happened is I flattened myself out, and I kind of faded. I had made the first call outs, which was incredible. But then I'm up there and I hear Steve Weinberger calling my name, or I see him sitting there judging me, and like Bob Ciccarello, I think, was the guy announcing people. And I was just like so starstruck, and the nerves were kicking in, and I was just posing super hard and just started sweating a little bit. But yeah, I was in that first call out, and then they kept me up there for the second call out. I was like, oh shit, this isn't going good. And I just went down in placings and ended up in ninth. There was 22 guys in there, and that was humbling for sure, you know, because once I was backstage and I saw some of these guys that I had kind of been keeping an eye on going into prep, and honestly, I was like, oh, I'm not worried about these guys. Like, I know what I'm going to bring in it, and it's going to be good. And then, dude, you get there and you see him in person, and it's a different story. Like, these dudes are polished. And Jordan Hutchinson, I think you had him on here. I saw him backstage. I was like, okay, you got the show. Like, I already know this. And they were like, man, I was worried about you the whole time. I was like, oh, kind of fucked that up, but.
Well, you know what? I love your mentality, but you also, it's just awesome because that was your first national show in terms of, USA's or nationals or something like that. So you probably had to be a little encouraged, weren't you, to get in first call outs for your first national competition?
Oh yeah. And it's cool because whoever it was that was posting the pictures on the, I forget who it was, they were posting pictures, and it's like first call out, and I'm on there, and I'm like, nice. And I was larger than most of the heavyweights, which was awesome. not quite as aesthetic as the guys like Jordan and Sid. He fucking incredible. But yeah, I was just a little bit boxier waist. So like my front relaxed is just not very strong. My side and any like front double, back double, those are great. But just my front relaxed, the first thing they see when I walk on stage is, you know, this guy's got a pretty blocky waist compared to these other heavyweights. So in hindsight, if I would have just not done the water protocols and try to cut into the heavies, I think I would have had a lot better shot in the supers compared to those guys, because they're just naturally bigger anyways. But now we know going into nationals this year, we're not trying to make a certain weight. Whatever it is when we get there is what it's going to be. And I also learned that I'm like super hypersensitive to any kind of weird changes. So the least amount of variables for me is the best. So I just stick to what I would do on a normal day, you know, stay in shape like weeks out so that I'm not worried about it. We don't need to try and panic and make weight or anything like that.
Excellent. Now you just said it sounds like nationals this year is your next time we're gonna see you on stage.
Yeah, so that's Orlando, December 3rd. So I'm gonna start that. We're gonna do a 12-week prep. Probably do like 4 weeks before that, just kind of clean things up a bit. But for me, that's really not hard. If I eat clean, I get in shape quick. I have to eat, you know, throw in some muffins in here and there just to keep the size on. So yeah, first few weeks, just clean things up, and then a 12-week prep, and just come in as big and full as possible with the conditioning that I know I can have without losing actual muscle tissue.
Cool. Now, why did you decide on nationals over USAs or North Americans? Was it just simply to give yourself some more time in terms of an off season, or what was that call for?
Yeah, so in 2020, I was prepping the whole year, so I really didn't get a lot of time to grow how I wanted to. And also spring and summer for me is, like I said earlier, is my busiest time of the year for painting. And I was like, you know what, if I can get all my painting done and save, because it's expensive, man. I went broke after that first show because I just, you know, you can only work so much. And I was like, you know, next time I want to go into this having a nice chunk of money saved so that I can take a little bit more time off on prep and, you know, not really tear my body down as much at work. So I was thinking North Americans at first, but I would still have to start prepping still at the time where I'd be making some good money painting. So I figured nationals is December, and also that's where Hunter Labrada turned pro. So, you know, can't beat that.
Cool.
And he actually told me when we were talking last weekend that he was 236 at the national show. And so I was like 232 last year at the Oregon, where I thought I looked best. So I'm like, all right, if I can come in 5-6 pounds heavier, a little bit tighter condition, I think I got a pretty good shot at it. But you never know, man. There's some heavy hitters out there. I was looking at the USA lineups, and there's a couple of big dudes. The supers are going to be awesome this year. I got a few buddies doing that, so I'm let them do it, and I'll wait till nationals.
Cool, man. No, yeah, and I've had some. I know I've had a handful of guys on that are competing in the USAs that have a lot of potential to turn pro there. And I know we'll have some awesome guys. I had quite a few guys on that turned pro at the nationals this past year, and then some of the guys that just missed out. So yeah, it's going to be a fun year in terms of, you know, North Americans, USAs, and nationals. I think there's maybe a little bit of a resurgence of some of the open bodybuilding in terms of the national competitions, which is cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just for a minute here. I'm curious, Ryan, in terms of like training, what's kind of your training style? What's your training philosophy? How do you approach your training? Just give us a little insight on that, please.
Yeah. You know, I've tried it all. I've done the high volume stuff, and that actually worked really well. Like in high school, that's kind of what my brother had taught me, and what his coach had showed him is 10 sets of 10 on squats and just push as much blood in there as possible. And, I've always known you need to just go balls to the wall, full intensity, at least with your heavy sets. And I think I maybe spent too much energy on my warm-ups and my non-working sets, but it was good for me to learn that mind to muscle connection, and all those extra reps, it's repetition. You just solidifying that connection. And it wasn't probably until after that first show that I started picking up progressive overload, like a lot more regularly. I do vary between the two depending on the time of the year, how my body feels. If my knees blown out from work or something like that, I'll ease back. And I know you have to be flexible with the way you train. So I think there's not really a right or wrong way, as long as you're building the muscle and not just moving weight. That's been my main thing. Sometimes it's kind of hard to not want to just go in there and beat the logbook every time, but man, you can only do that for so long until it catches up with you and you're just hitting the wall, and you got to try something new. And like right now, I was doing Smith squats, deadlifts, and all that, and my nervous system, after a few months of doing that, was just shot. So I've pulled back on those a bit, doing a little bit more isolation work, and I'm growing just as fine. I've built a foundation with the heavy weights, and my structure is pretty big now, so having to do more isolation work is necessary.
What's kind of your current training split for all of us, just that are kind of curious?
Yeah, so I've got a pretty good chest and shoulders and arms. Like those, I'm not lacking there at all. But yeah, my feedback from the shows was just more thickness on the back, and obviously I want bigger legs all the time. So I have just a chest and a shoulder day, and then I have a back width day, which is just a lot of pull downs and isolation work, then rest. And then Thursday is just quads and calves. Still get a little bit of hammies in there, but quad dominant. And then Friday is always arm day. It's just, it's the end of the week. Everybody wants to just get a nice little pump. So that's always kind of fun. And then Saturday mornings are my back thickness and hamstring day. And that's pretty cool too. We're in there doing deadlifts and get some of the boys together, and that's really awesome. And then Sunday's another rest day. So 2 leg days, 2 back days, and just one push.
So 5 training days per week, and then 2 rest days.
Yeah. And I rest Sunday and Wednesday.
Okay. Now on your rest days, everybody's different. And obviously, you having your business and being outdoors and climbing ladders and breaking ladders and stuff like that. It may be a little bit different, but I'm curious, on your off days, are they outside of obviously working, but in terms of your training, are they like fully off, or do you go in and do some pump work or do some light cardio, or what does that look like in terms of off days?
Yeah. So my off days, I still go to the gym. I just have to, I like to see, that's my family, man. So I like to go in there and I'll stretch, kind of catch up with everybody and maybe do a little light cardio, but a lot of foam rolling and stretching, maybe some posing here and there. Maybe I'll work with a client or help them out with their workout. But yeah, rest days, I really try to just do, like, it's more of an active rest. Maybe one of them a week, I'll just stay home and turn on Netflix and just put my feet up and try to actually let my body chill. Because that's one of the hard things about my business is, the work doesn't stop when I get home. I have people messaging me 8 or 9 at night asking about jobs and quotes, and I'm like, I can't get away from it. So it is nice to have those days where I'll turn my phone off and just put my feet up and just fully decompress from all that.
1000%. Yep. That's great. Now, are you kind of up in the neck of woods in terms of Justin Shire or not?
Yeah. So he's in South Oregon, I think, like Grants Pass or something. And we're farther up north, but yeah, we're definitely in the Northwest, and yeah, he's a big inspiration too. It's awesome his progress he's made in the last couple of years for sure.
Yeah, yeah. He came on the podcast before he turned pro, and obviously we know what he did at nationals, and what he's done in terms of the fitness industry now with Hostile and all that. But man, yeah, like what a beautiful and just aesthetically pleasing physique he's got. You were mentioning Oregon. I know he's out there, so I didn't know if you guys connected to train at all, or if he was in the same area or not. So
yeah, we haven't trained yet together, but I have seen him at a couple shows, and he came out to O'Malley's one day, and yeah, I still haven't, but I'm definitely going to go down and check out his gym when I get the chance.
yeah, cool. All right, so we're gonna start kind of wrapping up. I want to ask you a little bit about like mindset. What are you kind of like a big person in terms of like visualization, in terms of your training, and do you have like any mantras or any like goals that you kind of like think about or write out or anything like that, or do you just kind of like have everything up in your head and just grinding through each day?
No, man, I'm huge on like visualization, manifestation, and like meditation. That's I think if you can't believe it and think it, it's not going to happen. So yeah, man, I will visualize myself going through poses. I'll just sit there at night and just in my head, I'll just go through it and think about different transitions and routines I could do. I know for USA's prep, I had I had a big poster board right in front of my treadmill that said Mr. USA 2021. And I didn't post that on social media because I'm not that kind of person. But for me, I need to tell myself that, that's the goal, and that's what I'm going for. I'm not going for second or third. I don't want to be top 5. I want to be, I really believed myself that I was going to be Mr. USA. So, yeah, so I definitely have some of those things. I have about 3 calendars. I got one on my phone and I keep 2 at my house, and I'll write down my routine and my goals, and I have a countdown already for nationals on my phone. So I'm counting every single day, man. Like Hunter says, you got to win the day and then string them all together and see what you get when you finish.
So what's on the board in front of the treadmill for this year then?
So I'm in a new place. So I don't have the treadmill in the house anymore, but I think just having the mirror in there, I just get up, I do my posing every single morning, and I just visualize it. I know that's where I'm going to be. I know I'm going to be going against some really, really good guys. And so, yeah. And, just meditating on it, man, like listening, just staying on top of it, listening to podcasts and staying on top of what everyone else is doing and staying motivated no matter what. And, making every day count.
So I'm assuming you may not want to say it, but you are going to get your IFBB Pro card this year, right?
Yeah, I don't want to sound overly confident because I think that's annoying.
Man. We're just talking shop, man. We're just speaking truth, So.
Yeah, and it's no disrespect to anyone else because I know they're incredible too, man. They're working hard too, but yeah, I believe deep down that that's exactly what I'm going to do this year.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Now you gotta promise me once you get your IFBB Pro card this year, you're gonna come back on the podcast and chop it up. Is that cool?
Oh yeah, absolutely, brother.
All right. I'm gonna hold that to you. So let's kind of start finishing up here. Let's talk about, or I want to ask you, Ryan, what's something like at this point in your bodybuilding experience and career that you kind of know that maybe when you first started, you wish you would have known, or you would have kind of like learned it a little bit sooner than you did? Is there anything that comes to mind when I ask you that?
Yeah. Just everything has to be just spot on. I would be a little bit more relaxed the whole time I was bulking, but then after I did my first prep, I realized what that to the T, weighing out my rice to the gram, not going 1 or 2 grams over. It would 250 grams of rice is exactly 250 grams of rice. you know, being just super meticulous about that, measuring my water, taking my vitamins every single day, all those little things add up. And, you know, it's not enough to just lift heavy and eat a lot of protein and carbs. Like you got to do all the little stuff. You got to do the tissue work, the rest days. You can't be training nonstop just because you like it. I mean, if you're wanting to be a bodybuilder, but yeah, I think just treating every day like you're on prep, even if you're in the off season, is probably where I've really made the most progress. And I wish I would have done earlier.
Yeah, that's great advice there, my man. Let's you brought up listening to podcasts. Is there from my perspective, there's not actually a lot of really good bodybuilding podcasts out there. That's kind of why I transitioned from more of a fitness podcast to a bodybuilding podcast, because a lot of the bodybuilding podcasts that are out there, from my personal opinion, suck, and they're just more like locker room talk. And I don't have time for that. Right. I want to hear from the athletes. I want to learn. I want to, like, you know, just ingest information. I don't want to just hear a bunch of stupid talk, but that's my own personal opinion. But is there a favorite bodybuilding podcast or favorite podcast, or a couple that, you know, you really listen to a lot that you can share with us?
Yeah. So I'm the same as you, man. Like, I don't want to just sit around listening to guys just bullshitting with each other. I can do that at the gym all day. And what ifs and weird scenarios. I'm like, I want bodybuilding information, and, you know, maybe a little bit of banter here and there, but still informative, because I'm, you know, I have usually like an hour commute to drive for work usually. So I'll turn on a podcast, and I want to hear I want to be able to learn. The Think Big Bodybuilding podcast, they've got a lot of good people that come on there. They've got, you know, Scott McNally and Skip Hill, Andrew Barry, and then Nate Spear on there. And those guys, they actually answer the questions, and they get down to the nitty gritty. And I really appreciate that. John Jewett puts out some really good information. Most of it's over my head, but I still retain some of it, you know, as much as I can. But yeah, I just really like the guys that are putting out real information that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Is there a non-bodybuilding podcast that you listen to, or is it kind of, you try to listen to all bodybuilding, or that's all you're interested in?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, it's funny. I was just telling someone last night, I was like, yeah, you know, there is more to life outside of bodybuilding. I just don't really know what it is. I'm not there yet.
And you know what, man, it's okay, man. Like, we all have our things, and you know, you're in pursuit of something you know, that is very lofty in terms of becoming an IFBB Pro, and you've got to be all in, man. Like, that's just the reality of it, and much respect to that. So we're gonna kind of wrap it up there, Ryan. I know you're on a work site, so I just want to, first of all, before we kind of wrap things up here, say thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to chop it up with me, share your story a little bit. I have to tell you, like, I'm on Instagram a lot. I love Instagram. I love pictures. I love just, you know, checking out whatever's going on within the bodybuilding world. And I think one of your pictures, actually, I think with Hunter Labrada, popped up like on the search or whatever. And I was like, who's this guy? And I was like, kind of just going through your IG, and I was like, this guy's definitely got a physique. I'd never heard of you. So I started following you and reached out to you. And that's really what I love. I love bringing on the IFBB pros, kind of the people that we've heard of, but I also like bringing on people like you, like before you guys turn pro, up and comers, just to kind of give you guys a little opportunity to share your story, because I think a lot more people can relate to you. Has his own painting business that's grinding and pursuing that professional bodybuilding career than we can, you know, some guy that's just at home and eating, sleeping, and training. So thank you so much for coming on, Ryan. I greatly appreciate it. If you have any kind of final words, any final thoughts that you want to share with all of us, any shout outs, the floor is yours, and then I'll do the outro. Okay.
All right, cool. Well, I got to shout out O'Malley's Gym, man. I can't say enough nice things about him. If anybody's ever in the Portland area, Portland, Oregon, stop by, check it out. They're super welcoming. Anybody that wants to come check it out, come say hi, come meet me, and meet Tim and Julie, the owners. And yeah, man, I just appreciate you having me on here. It's awesome. I really appreciate what you're doing and bringing some of us up and coming guys together and getting us out there.
For sure, man. I got one more question for you, Ryan, before we go. I like to ask this to most of my guests, but what do you feel like bodybuilding has taught you, or what do you feel like bodybuilding has given you?
Man, honestly, you know, I've had some like mental health kind of things that have been, you know, everybody's got their own thing that they go through, but I've had some dark times and gone to some dark places in my mind. And I just think bodybuilding and the gym in general has saved me from a lot of really terrible situations that I could have got myself into. It's just been my escape at times. And yeah, I think it's just taught me that like shit gets hard, but as long as you just stick with it and you're patient, like eventually, you know, if you really believe in something, that one day it's going to start coming to life. And I'm right there, man. I'm on the cusp. I'm around the right people. My name's getting out there, and it's not about, you know, clout or anything like that, but just having respect and being respected in the industry is huge. And the recognition is awesome, man. I really appreciate it. So you, Bodybuilders Without Borders, Daniel, Sulios, all you guys are awesome, man. Really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Love it. I'm looking forward to seeing what nationals bring for you. And like I said, after you turn pro and you start getting RX Muscle and all the big names reaching out to you to do interviews, just remember Behind the Muscle, man. We'll get you back on, okay?
You're on for sure, brother. I'll be there.
All right, cool. All right, Ryan, I appreciate you, man. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much for listening, watching on YouTube. I appreciate all of you. Your support means a lot to me. If it wasn't for all of you, the podcast wouldn't exist. As we wrap up this conversation with Ryan, two quick things I would ask of all of you. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We are currently at 799 subscribers on YouTube. So if you want to be that 800th subscriber, that would be super cool. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't done that already. That would be greatly appreciated. I release all these episodes first on YouTube, and then I'll distribute them to iTunes and the other podcast platforms. So that's why it's important that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, because you'll be first to get all of the Behind the Muscle podcast episodes. And then one final favor before we wrap up here, I would ask all of you, just take this episode with Ryan, share it on your Instagram stories, tag Ryan, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then finally, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.